Well, howdy, howdy, howdy. Finally, senior citizen here. Greetings, boys, girls, and all of our non-binary friends, and welcome to this. And remember, no matter who you are valid. Definitely a thumbs up for that. It is indeed a brand new day. It is almost, well, it's almost 1:15 as I'm recording this. Late in the day. Been finding it difficult to get things started, but I'll come to that in just a moment. First off, I wanted to address, I'd mentioned before how I ripped my hands apart just by tying up my shoelaces. This is a healing wound on the side of my finger. Just ripped my hands up with my shoelaces. Been working very carefully to try and not do that again. I wondered, was using all the lotion on my hands making my skin too soft, or was it that they're just too dry at that point? And I think they were too dry because I've been really trying, aggressively keeping my hands lotioned up, and it's been working. My fingers have been sore after I tie my shoes, but they have not been torn apart. And the reason it's so much is they are larger than the normal shoes that I wear, and that the laces go up over my ankles, whereas the previous ones did not. And so, also because they are size 11.5 shoes, there's just a lot of lace, and the shoes are bigger, so they need to be pulled tighter around my legs and my feet, but not too tight because I don't want to cut off the circulation. Oh, itchy. So I've got to pull them tight. Again, tight enough that they don't become loose and floppy, because then they're just going to be driving me crazy, and not so tight that they cut off the circulation. And they are rough shoelaces, so I've got to tighten them up with my skin. And the lotion has apparently been working, because I guess I've got calluses developing underneath even the softening of the lotion, but I'm not ripping my skin up anywhere near as much, so that's a good thing. Definitely a thumbs up on that. Yay. One of the other things that I want to talk about real quick is a current events thing, and I hate current events because I don't want to talk about them, but current events are going to affect you whether or not you want to deal with current events. Just like you may not want to mess with politics, but politics is going to mess with you. So occasionally I'm going to talk about current events. Like, I was horrified by what happened in the White House with Ukraine and the presidential leader, President Zelensky. I find myself in complete agreement. There's a younger fellow, like 20 years younger than me, I think. He looks like he's in his early 40s. He's going white on his chin, but the rest of his hair that he shows is still black. Whether he dyes it, I don't know, but this is the only white he has. But he was talking about how if you had gone back even 10 years and had told him that after a meeting that he watched, finding out that we are on the very brink of losing all of our leadership in the world, because there are so many nations now that are they're working out how to deal with things without us, so that they don't have to deal with us. And as this person was saying, if you had told him 10 years ago that he would have heard that and been glad that we are losing and being replaced because we've joined the side that we fought against in World War II. But here we are. And of course, with Trump's tariffs coming into effect today, I watch a couple channels that talk about current events and politics, and they talk about how everybody that knows anything at all about economics is telling us we're probably going to hit the worst recession that anybody in living memory has had. There's jiggery-pokery going on because there is a system that this one place uses for determining what a forecast for the gross domestic product of the nation is going to be. They've only been off like 0.5% in all of their forecasts. And that's a hair. The last forecast they had for 2025 first quarter, a loss of like 6%. You know what's surprisingly happening? Oh, for the first time ever? Yeah, the government is deciding to change the method that they'll be reporting things. Oh, and it makes things look pretty rosy with the new method. You don't think investors are going to see right through that? Investors are going to see something like that and go, oh, they're so worried about it, they're trying to hide it by changing the system. We're in for a lot of pain. And unfortunately, when the United States sneezes, the rest of the world gets a cold. But enough for current events. I did want to talk about other things because I hate current events. Even though, as I mentioned, whether or not you mess with current events and politics, they're going to mess with you. So I try to pay attention to things, but I don't like having them affect me so much that I feel the need to talk about them. One of the reasons, as stated, that a lot of the people that are clients of my therapist and his company are dealing with direct ramifications of what's happened ever since leading up to and then the election. A lot of people with issues are having problems. But current events over. I did want to talk about Cryptid stuff. So my solo RPG, creative, inside-outside Cryptid setting, multiversal, cosmic horror. So if you didn't click off while I was busy talking about current events here in the United States, thumbs up and thank you. While I'm at it, hey, call to action. If you could like, comment, share, subscribe, that'd be very cool. And hey, if you are a patron, you are beautiful and awesome. Thank you so very much. When you look in the mirror, you're looking at somebody who was beautiful and awesome. It is greatly appreciated. You help me out so very, very much. But on the creative side, I wanted to talk about how my whole Cryptid stuff came about. And then one of the characters from the very beginning. Because it was basically my therapist had heard me talking about wanting to do something, and he was talking about archetypes. So a lot of the reason I have archetypes in the whole Cryptid setting, though I don't talk about the archetypes much, is because of what he was talking about with that. But then the first Cryptid character I came up with was the character of Jimmy Lane Baker. And based on, I had gone with, if archetypes and then number of different types of cards in a card set, and then, 12. And so I based a lot of things on that. Gotta look over here and make sure I can bring it back because of ADHD. And so I was basing a lot of it on that with a 13th kind of Cryptid. I wanted to have an archetype that wasn't an archetype, and I think that was one of the better ideas I had, though I don't talk about this type of cryptid much ever since the beginning. But the 13th type of cryptid is a cryptid that has a genetic defect. All the cryptids in the world that don't have to have a dietary requirement of eating human beings absorb this cryptid ambient energy that surrounds us all. And if they have the genetic defect where they cannot, then they have to get the equivalent out of eating human beings. We have a type of energy that we emit from the quantum knotting that forms from quantum particles because of the intelligence happening in our brains. All creatures have it depending on their intelligence, larger, more complex patterns, or smaller, less complex patterns. A hamster pattern might be just a woo, but ours are much, much more. But the energy that comes out of that infuses the meat of our bodies, and this energy, when consumed, does the equivalent of absorbing this energy out of the ambient energy. It lasts them for however long it takes. Most dark cryptids only have to eat like 3, 4, maybe 5 or 6 people every year. So they last for X number of months. 13th type of cryptids, they don't absorb anything. Even the ones that have the normal genetic defect where they're not absorbing energy, they're absorbing some. That's why they can go months between having devoured a human being to fill up their battery enough. They're able to absorb enough that it slows down that rate. One of the 13th types, they don't have any batteries at all. Depending on how bad of a defect it is, some of those might have to eat only 4 or 5 people every year. If they have it really bad, 6, 7, or 8 every year, when you got it really, really bad, it's 12 or more. Jimmy Lane Baker, if he wants to live, has such a bad genetic defect that he has to devour an entire living human being every single week, or he will starve to death. He expressed as a cryptid in his mid-30s. And there are 2 types of cryptids in the world, I posit. There are the expressed cryptid, where your genes on your cryptid genes express, at which point, depending on how strong the reaction and the type of cryptid you are, you may fall into a coma for the whole change to occur, or like others, you may just have, oh, I got a runny nose, and that's all the side effects that you feel. But Jimmy Lane Baker, well, then there's the naturalized one, where both of your parents were either both cryptids or a cryptid and a human. But if you express, you express. But the 13th kind has an issue in that all cryptids, naturalized or expressed, have a chunk of them that is set aside for instinct, for the kind of cryptid they are. They're archetypical? They're archetypes, rule sets for how to be the type of cryptid that they are. Some of them have that instruction manual imprinted on them so hard they are basically prisoners. They can't be anything except what the rule set says to be. There is a person locked and trapped inside of there, but they can't do anything because of how strong their instincts are. And then there are others like the person that I'm not going to have time to talk about, who didn't even know he was a cryptid. He expressed when he was like 12 years old, only had sniffles, spent a day, feeling kind of icky in bed, and then the next day was great. He'd already expressed, didn't even know it. So he found out some 14 years later. But for the others, it can happen, and then you're out, and then you go. But if you're a 13th kind, like Jimmy Lane Baker, yeah, you've got to devour human beings far more often than any dark cryptid, and maybe many, many more than anyone would expect. And 13th type of cryptids, because they have no instinct, they have an unaltered human mind going into this. Jimmy Lane Baker is Jimmy Lane Baker in a cryptid body that has to eat human beings. Most 13th type of cryptids do not survive past their first year. They simply cannot handle what they have to do to live, and so take themselves out of the game. The longer the span of time, the smaller the number of dark cryptids, 13th kind. So it's rough. And if you've left a comment, thumbs up and thank you. It is appreciated. I read every comment that YouTube shows me. I thumbs up or heart every comment that YouTube allows, and I answer as many as my nerve compression will let me, which is not as many as I would like, but is better than zero, so that's a good thing. I'm going to scratch my lip and then look over here to make sure I don't have anything crawling on my face or anything. Great big old spider, just like it's this big. That would be terrifying. I am not arachnophobic anymore, but I am creepy crawly phobic like a normal human being. So I'm not frightened, but I have looked down and found a moth that was flickering on my arm and go bah, until it was like, oh, it's a moth. So I'm a human being. I'm just not arachnophobic anymore. But a big old spider, big as my hand, I'd have issues with that. Maybe. I mean, if it was crawling on my face, definitely. But tarantulas, my brain does not process them as spiders. They're too big. My brain goes, okay, that's not a spider. So even when I was arachnophobic, I was like, hey, I'd like to have one of those. Those are cool. So it was just too big for my brain to go, oh, spider. But if it was crawling on my face, yeah, it would be like, ah! Not that they would actually, most of them, I think, their jaws, they don't have jaws. They have chelicerae, upon which they have on the end of the chelicerae, they have fangs. So they don't have jaws, they have chelicerae, which, again, that's the jaw, big part with a fang on the end. And then they have a set of mouth arms. And then they have pedipalps, which are like arms, except they don't have hands, so they just feel the world with those while they go walking. They have... classically there's 8 legs, but when you count them all up, yeah, there's a lot more than that. So, thumbs up. Anyway, though, I'm going to edit, render, upload, and then take care of myself by continuing to... I got to try and watch fewer videos and do more video game playing and drag out this stuff and do my best to force myself to read as best I can. It is getting lighter for longer, and even though the weather is awful, so I'm not getting out of here as often. As soon as it does, I will be out there, because I have been out. I need to go do laundry. I was going to take a shower today. My hair looks awful because I don't have any towels, which I discovered only this morning. So I have 2 of the fabric grocery bags from Walmart filled with towels, which would be about 4 each. And I got to drag those over in the laundry room and get those done so I can take a shower either before I go to bed tonight or tomorrow morning, much more likely. So thumbs up on that. Hopefully you can get done the things that you want to get done. That would be very cool. Definitely a thumbs up on that. But if not, please do not beat yourself up. It will not help you get it done better later. And you deserve better. So thumbs up on that part, definitely. So, until we meet again, you take care. Have a great day today. I will see you on the flip side. And that is indeed a very, very good thing. Boy, I gotta reach way over here to get myself at this angle for this shot. I had to put everything skewed over to the side, and I'm gonna have to really crank up the audio because I'm like 2 feet away from the microphone. But it's a pretty good mic. I mean, do audio normalization in Wondershare's Filmora, and you can't even tell that they had to bump up the decibels. So thumbs up on that. Except for the really loud sounds, then they peak. Anyway, if you have watched this far, thumbs up and thank you. I would say, you know, hey, if you could put Ace of Spades in the comments, that would be very cool. But it's at the end of the video, and nobody has watched it this far. But if you have... Anyway, if you are watching, take care, and have a very, very good day.